Hello, dear World of Warcraft friends. Welcome back to a new video on my channel. Patch 12.1 is in full swing, and in this first week we can hang out here on the island. We can already play the Mythic Zero dungeons and so on. But next week things really kick off with the start of the first season, the opening of the raid, Mythic Plus and everything that comes with it. Fittingly, Blizzard has now commented on how they will proceed with class tuning, and at least 4 rounds of class tuning have been announced. That means, in the end, just play what you enjoy. So much is going to change. And even if your class is insanely good or even insanely bad today, that means absolutely nothing. There's no guarantee that it will stay that way next week, or the week after, or the week after that, because those are ultimately the dates for class tuning. We take a closer look at what that's all about in this video. I'll say right up front, I think it's really cool that Blizzard is communicating this at this point. That they're handling it this way, ultimately just like in the first season of Midnight, and honestly I already thought it was very well done back then, so personally, I thought it was good that they reacted early and communicated from the start, hey, there will be at least this many rounds, so nobody had to wait around wondering, will my class get buffed or not. Let's get started. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. And Blizzard, as I already mentioned, announced all of this at the end of this week through this statement. So all in all, they give a little insight into what their content tuning roadmap looks like, and we can see here there will be one on August 18th, August 25th, September 1st, and September 22nd. Those are the current plans. For us, of course, you have to add another day to each of those, because those are the dates for America. But it doesn't fundamentally change the planning. Or rather, they're the same, I call them breakpoints, that also apply to America. So all in all, why the 18th or the 19th of August? That's pretty self-explanatory. The first season starts on that day. Blizzard will of course be able to collect more data once the season has started than they can right now. But nonetheless, people are playing Mythic Zero dungeons, people are playing Delves. Blizzard is collecting a lot of data from the Void, from whatever, so everything we can already play right now is being monitored by Blizzard, and based on these numbers and data they get, they will eventually make class tuning changes. And if you ask me, is it right? You might actually think, yeah, okay, but actually they had the whole PTR to get the tuning right for the start of the season. But here you have to say, there's simply a lot more people playing on live than on the PTR. That's why Blizzard now has a lot more data that they might not have had before and can therefore make different decisions. The same ultimately applies to August 26th. It absolutely makes sense here as well. The first season will then have been running for exactly 1 week, and Blizzard has the opportunity to make initial adjustments regarding raids and Mythic Plus. So here you can already see whether all classes are performing the way they should. Is there a class that's maybe super strong in Mythic Plus but really bad in raids? Then you can adjust the single target damage, for example, and also the other way around. So it makes perfect sense that Blizzard is choosing this path. And of course it also makes sense to make this adjustment at the start of a season. Because honestly, someone who for example pushes the whole season so that in the final stretch, when everything counts, their class gets nerfed into the ground, would be just as upset as someone whose class is useless for the whole patch and then suddenly becomes good in the last week, right? So I definitely think that makes sense at this point. The next class tuning is then scheduled for the second week of the second season. So in our case, on September 2nd, here it's more about taking the impressions that have been gathered so far.
Do they hold up? No.
Maybe at one point or another a class was nerfed too hard or buffed too much or something else. Here you can verify all the data you've collected up to this point again and possibly adjust it. And from this point on it takes another 3 weeks until Blizzard steps in again. And I also think that's a very, very good thing. Because in the first season of Midnight, Blizzard made adjustments in the first, second, third, and fourth week. So every week there was class tuning. And I think this approach definitely makes sense again. You have 3 weeks in a row where balancing is done, where things can be checked. How are the changes looking? And at that point, I assume that, for example, the bonus rolls and so on could also be introduced. So, in other words, at the point where Blizzard decides this is how the classes should perform, this is how they should interact with each other, that a seasonal boost comes at that point, I think is quite possible. But again, it makes sense to do that at a point in the middle of the season. And then they also write further tuning phases will come if they become necessary. So if a class really completely underperforms in all content, then adjustments will also be made outside of these cycles. And that's exactly how we know there will be a patch 12.17. There will most likely be released around August and November, December, something like that. And here too, Blizzard has the opportunity to react again, not just through class tuning, but in these, well, these are actually smaller patches again, but generally in these patches, Blizzard often adds changes, like new talents, differently arranged talents, and so on and so forth. All of that is possible in such a patch. And that's why you can assume that many specs will also change again in these small patches. Because of talents, maybe they'll even say, hey, some class just doesn't work at all, we want to rework it. That would also be theoretically possible. And of course, usually even in these small patches, there's always some class tuning. So I assume that with the 2 patches just mentioned, there will probably be a good 6 rounds of major class tuning this season. And I don't know, to me that all sounds very, very solid. And the chances that this season will be pretty good in terms of balancing actually look pretty good, I'd say. And yeah, that's it for this video. Feel free to write in the comments what you think about all this. You can find the link to that in the video description, of course. If you want, you can read through the whole thing yourself again. And yeah, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. That would support me a lot. It doesn't cost anything. And yeah, of course you won't miss any more class tuning updates or other stories in the future. But now, that's really enough talking. See you in the next video, have a great time and take care.